The fork didn't tremble, not once. That was what made Sebastian Creed sit a little straighter in his chair, like his body had finally caught up to the situation his mind refused to accept. The private dining room above St. Noir was built for secrets. Soundproof velvet walls, a single pendant light aimed like an interrogation lamp, floor-to-ceiling glass showing Manhattan glittering below as if the city itself was watching. 2 security cameras in the corners, a third one hidden in the smoke detector. 4 men in black suits spaced like chess pieces around the table, earpieces coiled tight, hands never far from their waistlines. Sebastian wore a charcoal Tom Ford jacket like armor, a patek on his wrist, and the expression of a man who had never been asked to pay a price he couldn't swipe away. Across from him sat Ivy Reed, waitress, wrists zip-tied behind a dining chair worth more than her yearly rent, hair pinned tight, cheap non-slip shoes still dusted with kitchen flour. In front of her, on bone-white porcelain, was the dish she'd served 10 minutes ago downstairs: scallop crudo, citrus foam, microgreens, perfect, delicate, expensive. The same dish that had made a U.S. senator stagger to the restroom with his face turning a color no camera could flattering edit. Sebastian didn't raise his voice. He didn't need volume when he had leverage. "You served it," he said softly. "He ate it. Now you eat the rest." One of the suits stepped forward and slid the fork into her fingers like he was placing a weapon in a hand he'd already disarmed. Plastic bit into Ivy's wrists every time she inhaled. The air smelled like lemon oil, expensive cologne, and disinfectant. Cleanliness turned aggressive. Ivy looked at the plate, then at Sebastian. Not at the guards, not at the cameras, at him. "All of it," Sebastian repeated, calm as a man ordering wine. "If you're innocent, you live." The room held its breath for the moment she'd beg. Ivy lifted the fork and took the first bite. Cold, bright, and wrong. Under the citrus, something bitter flashed like pennies on her tongue. Sebastian watched her chew, watched her swallow. His eyes were clinical, as if her throat was a metric. Ivy didn't cough. She didn't gag. She didn't perform guilt for his satisfaction. She took a second bite. Sebastian leaned back, faint smile cutting across his face. "You think this is a movie," he said. "Like you're going to pull a brave little face and win." Ivy swallowed again, slow, controlled. "If I die," she said quietly, "your money dies with me." A chuckle broke from one of the guards. Sebastian didn't laugh. His gaze sharpened. "Cute," he murmured. He tapped his Virtu phone once without looking down, the gesture so casual it was insulting. "I know every account tied to every name in this city. Ivy Reed doesn't exist. No credit file, no lease, no insurance. In 30 seconds, every door in this building stops opening for you. In 60, every screen you've ever touched goes black. In 90, every employer gets a quiet message that you're poison. That's what money is. It's permission. And I'm the one who grants it." Ivy took a third bite. Her fingertips tingled slightly where the fork pressed into her skin. She felt a heat coil low behind her ribs. Warning, not pain yet. She kept her face still anyway. "Permission isn't power," she said. "It's a leash." Sebastian's jaw ticked. That was the first crack. Not anger. Interest. He leaned forward into the cone of light, eyes bright as broken glass. "Who paid you?" he asked. "Because this is what you are. A nobody with cheap shoes and a tight bun. The perfect carrier. You walk in invisible, You walk out invisible. Ivy's mouth tightened, not with fear, but with calculation. She glanced at his hands. Clean nails, no ring, the faint ghost of where one used to be. She filed it away like evidence. "Nobody paid me," she said. "I'm not here for your dinner." One of the suits shifted. A small movement, but the room reacted to it. Tension tightening, shoulders squaring, the soft whisper of a jacket. Sebastian lifted one finger and the movement froze mid-breath. He didn't take his eyes off Ivy. "Then tell me who you are," he said, voice low enough to feel intimate, "before your body tells me for you." Ivy lifted the fork again. Fourth bite. Bitter. Metallic. The burn behind her ribs sharpened, crawling upward like heat under skin. She could feel her pulse in her throat, but she forced it down, slowed it with will the way you slow your breathing under cold water. "You're shaking," Sebastian observed, watching her like he could buy truth by staring hard enough. Ivy didn't look away. "I'm counting," she said. "Onset, window. How long you have before you lose control." That was when the room changed, not because of her words, anyone could say words, but because of how she said them. Not bravado, not panic. Practice. Sebastian's smile faded. "A waitress can't do that," he said, but it landed wrong, like a line he'd never had to speak before. Ivy's lips barely moved. "A waitress can do anything," she answered, "when nobody's watching her." Sebastian's phone buzzed on the table. Once, twice. He didn't touch it. His head of security, a bald man with an earpiece and a scar that split his eyebrow, listened to his feed and drained of color as if someone had pulled the blood out with a syringe. "Sir," he said, voice tight, "Cred Pay is failing authorizations. Two-factor is timing out. It's not localized." One of the suits scoffed. "It's a network hiccup." The security chief shook his head without taking his eyes off Sebastian. "It's spreading across your stack, like someone's pulling the floor out under it." Sebastian finally picked up the Virtu and thumbed the screen. A payment request popped up. His own, habitual, he tapped approve without thinking. The phone flashed declined. For half a second, his face went empty, like a mask slipping. Then another alert stacked on top. Access revoked. Private elevator. Another. Biometric token invalid. The room felt smaller. The pendant light suddenly too bright. Ivy swallowed hard as nausea rolled up hot and fast. She tasted citrus and metal and something like electricity. She forced the wave down because she refused to give him the spectacle he was paying for. Sebastian's eyes snapped back to her, awake now, sharp as a blade finely drawn. "What did you do?" he asked. Ivy lifted the fork, finished the last bite left on the plate, and set the utensil down with a soft, deliberate click that sounded louder than it should have. "I didn't do anything," she said. "I stopped you from doing what you always do, buying your way out." The security chief's earpiece hissed with frantic voices. One of the guards took a step toward Ivy, hand half raised, not sure whether to hit her or beg her. Sebastian didn't move. He held her gaze, and for the first time there was something in it that wasn't contempt. It was calculation meeting calculation. "Untie her," the security chief whispered. But it wasn't an order. It was a plea. Sebastian ignored him. "If you're lying," Sebastian said, voice soft enough to be cruel, "I won't kill you. I'll erase you. You'll be alive, and you'll still be nothing." Ivy's wrists burned against the zip ties as she flexed her fingers once, slow. Her stomach turned again, harder. She felt sweat gather at her spine. She forced a smile anyway, small, private, like she owned something in this room none of them could touch. "Then decide fast," she said, "because your money just stopped recognizing your face." The wall-mounted control panel by the door chimed. The security chief glanced at it, and his voice broke on the next word. "Sir, the building just switched you to guest access." On the panel, in clean white letters, a message appeared under Sebastian's name. "User not authorized." The control panel's chime hung in the room like an insult. "User not authorized. Guest access." Sebastian Creed stared at the words as if the glass might apologize if he looked hard enough. The security chief took one step toward the door, then stopped, because the door was suddenly a question. One guard reached for his earpiece again. Static. Another tried his phone. No bars. "Faraday film," Ivy said, almost conversational, forcing her breath steady through the nausea that kept trying to climb her throat. "You paid for privacy. Congratulations." Sebastian's eyes flicked to the windows, the velvet walls, the hidden corners. He had built a box to keep other people out. Now it was keeping him in. "Untie her," the security chief said again, firmer. Sebastian didn't answer. He walked to the door and placed his palm on the biometric pad with the kind of confidence that had opened private jets and bank vaults. The pad blinked red. Access denied. He tried again, slower, as if the machine might recognize his patience. Red again. The smallest muscle in his cheek tightened. He pulled a black card from his wallet, the one that didn't have numbers because it didn't need them, and tapped it against the panel like a ritual. The panel didn't care. Red. "Money doesn't work on doors," Ivy murmured. "It works on people." Sebastian turned. That calm mask was still on his face, but now it had hairline fractures. "You want to negotiate," he said. "Fine. Start with the part where you tell me how you did it." Ivy flexed her wrists against the zip ties. The plastic cut, sharp, reminding her body to panic. She refused. "Start with the part where you decide whether you want to stay a king," she said, "or become a headline." The security chief took out a small knife. He didn't wait for permission this time. He leaned behind Ivy and sliced the ties. Relief surged through her hands, then pins and needles, then pain. She pulled her arms forward, rolling her shoulders like she was shedding a costume. The room watched for her to bolt. She didn't. Her knees threatened to fold under the poison's heat, but she steadied herself on the back of the chair and kept her gaze level. Sebastian's gaze dropped to her hands. Red marks, slight tremor now that the adrenaline had to share space with chemistry. "You're not fine," he said. "Whatever you served, it's in you." "I ate what you forced," Ivy replied, "not what I served." That landed. The security chief's eyes narrowed. One of the guards muttered, "What?" Ivy swallowed hard, the bitter metal still clinging to her tongue. "If you were smart," she said, "you'd ask why a waitress would ever poison the plate she's going to be blamed for." Sebastian stepped closer. He smelled like cedar and money and something clean that made Ivy's stomach turn worse. "So tell me," he said, "why?" Ivy's eyes didn't blink. "Because somebody wanted you to do exactly this," she said. "Lock me in a room with you." A silence snapped into place. Even the city beyond the glass seemed to mute itself. Sebastian looked at his security chief. "Get me access back," he ordered. "Now." The security chief's jaw worked. "Sir, your token is invalid across the network. The building system is tied to Creed Pay credentials. If the stack is failing—" "I don't care how," Sebastian cut in. "I care that it happens." Ivy let out a thin breath, almost a laugh. "That's your problem," she said. "You've never had to care how." Sebastian's phone buzzed again. This time he didn't ignore it. He unlocked the screen with his thumb, and the device stuttered like it was waking up from a coma. A notification popped. Account review. Another. Limits applied. Another. Identity verification required. It was the kind of language he'd used against other people. Now it was pointed at him. He stared at it, then at Ivy. "You're inside my system," he said. "That's impossible." Ivy took a slow step to the table, bracing her fingertips on the linen like it was an anchor. Her nausea spiked. She forced it down. "No," she said. "I'm outside it. That's the difference." Sebastian's voice went colder. "There is no outside." "There is," Ivy said. "You just made sure nobody could live there." He studied her face, like he was trying to see the seams of a mask. "Who are you?" Ivy's lips pressed together for a beat. "Not the name you can erase," she said. "Not the file you can delete. I'm the space your money can't reach." One of the guards scoffed. "Lady, everyone's got a price." Ivy's eyes flicked to him, sharp. "Then why are you still standing there?" she shot back. "Go open the door. Go swipe your card and walk out." "Oh, right. You can't. Because his permission just got revoked." The guard's face tightened. Sebastian lifted a hand, and the man went silent. Sebastian's eyes stayed on Ivy. "You want something," he said. "Nobody does this for philosophy." Ivy's fingers slid across the table edge until she found the fork she'd used, the metal cool against her skin. Not a weapon. A reminder. "I want 10 minutes," she said. "Full access, no interruptions. And I want you to stop treating your security team like they're your spine, because one of them is going to break you." The security chief stiffened. "Sir?" Sebastian didn't look at him. "Name the price," Sebastian said to Ivy. "Money? Passport? Apartment? A clean slate." Ivy's mouth twitched. "You think a clean slate is something you can purchase," she said. "You don't get it. I don't want your money. I want your reach." Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "My reach is my money." "Then you're already dead," Ivy said, and she watched the words hit him like a slap. The tension between them shifted, not softer, worse, like a wire being pulled tight, singing. Sebastian stepped even closer until Ivy could see the faint scar at his temple, the one the magazines never mentioned. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "If I give you 10 minutes, you could destroy me." Ivy met his stare, heat rolling under her skin, the poison making everything sharper and uglier. "If you don't," she whispered back, "someone else will. And they won't leave you alive long enough to understand why." The security chief's earpiece suddenly crackled to life, one clear burst, not static. A voice came through, calm, corporate, familiar. "Protocol red," it said. "Subject Creed compromised. Remove the asset and the witness." The security chief's face went gray. One of the guards, young, eager, shifted his stance and drew a gun, not at Ivy, but at Sebastian. "Say." The gun came up like a thought turning into action, clean, fast. The young guard's arm locked out, muzzle steady on Sebastian's chest, eyes glassy with the decision he'd made before he entered the room. For a fraction of a second, nobody moved, because nobody in Sebastian Creed's world ever pointed a weapon at Sebastian Creed. The security chief's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Ivy's stomach rolled hard, heat spiking behind her ribs, but her mind stayed cold. "Don't!" the security chief finally snapped. "Stand down!" The guard didn't blink. His earpiece crackled again, that same calm, corporate voice, closer now, like it was inside his skull. "Protocol Red, remove the compromised subject. Remove the witness." Sebastian didn't flinch. He looked at the gun like it was a bad quarterly report. "You're pointing at the wrong asset," he said softly. "I'm the one who pays you." The guard's lip twitched. "You can't pay if you're locked out," he shot back, and that line was the real shot, because it meant he knew. He'd seen the alerts. He'd felt the shift. Sebastian's eyes slid to Ivy without turning his head. "This is you," he murmured. Not an accusation, a measurement. Ivy kept her hands visible on the table. No sudden moves. "This is your house," she whispered back. "So ask yourself who handed out Protocol Red." The guard's finger tightened. The moment stretched thin. Ivy moved first, not toward the gun, but toward the light. She grabbed the stem of the pendant lamp above the table and yanked it sideways with everything she had left in her arms. The heavy shade swung hard, a bright cone of light ripping across the room like a search beam. It slammed into the guard's shoulder. His aim jolted. The gun went off, one deaf crack that made the glass vibrate. The bullet punched into the far wall, tearing velvet and plaster in a neat, ugly hole. The room erupted into motion. Sebastian lunged out of his chair at the same time the security chief tackled the shooter's arm. Furniture scraped, linen snapped. Someone shouted. Ivy's ears rang, high and thin, but she saw the gun bounce once on the table edge, saw the guard's panic flare when he realized he'd fired inside a billionaire's private room. Sebastian moved like he'd been in fights he never talked about, fast, direct, violent in the way rich men are when they forget they're supposed to be civilized. He grabbed the shooter's wrist and slammed it into the table. The gun clattered to the floor. The guard swung at Sebastian with his free hand. Sebastian took it on the shoulder, barely reacting, and drove his elbow into the man's ribs. Not a kill shot, a stop shot. The guard folded, gasping. The security chief kicked the gun away. Two other guards reached for theirs, then froze because they didn't know who they were allowed to shoot anymore. "Nobody fires," Sebastian said, voice sharp now, a command that used to be law. It didn't land the way it used to. The security chief grabbed the shooter by the collar. "Who issued it?" he demanded. The guard's eyes flicked to the ceiling, to the hidden camera, to the smoke detector. "Compliance," he choked. "Creed pay compliance, not you, not security." Sebastian went still. Ivy felt the shift in him, like a door closing somewhere deep. "There is no compliance without my signature," Sebastian said. The shooter laughed once, breathless. "Not anymore." Ivy's nausea surged again, harder, and she tasted metal. She pressed her palm to the table to ground herself. Sebastian saw it. His gaze flicked to her mouth, her throat, the sheen of sweat at her hairline. For 1 second his attention softened, and that softness was a liability. "We need out," Ivy said, the words clipped. "Now." Sebastian's security chief nodded sharply. "Service stairwell," he said. "No electronic locks." "Of course," Ivy muttered, voice tight. "Analog still works." Sebastian stared at the door panel again, as if willing it to obey. It didn't. "My phone," he snapped, already moving. He tried to call. No signal. He tried to hotspot. Dead. The Faraday film Ivy mentioned earlier wasn't just privacy. It was a cage. "Open the windows," Sebastian ordered. The security chief ran to the glass and found the latch, then stopped. The latch was sealed. Custom. Permanent. Beautiful. Useless. "St. Noir's a fortress," the chief said. "Only one way out without the system." He grabbed a silver keyring from his pocket. Real keys, the kind Sebastian never touched. Sebastian's mouth tightened like he'd swallowed something bitter. "You carry keys," he said, almost offended. The chief didn't look at him. "I carry reality," he replied. Ivy's vision tunneled for a second. Heat under her skin. Poison and adrenaline wrestling in her blood. She sucked in air through her nose, slow. "If I pass out," she said, "you lose your only lead." Sebastian's eyes snapped to her. "You're not passing out," he said, too quick. "That wasn't a request." He stepped in, close enough that Ivy could smell the cedar on his collar, and without asking, he slid an arm behind her back, steadying her. His touch was firm, practical, but it hit like an electric wire anyway, because it was the first time he'd touched her without trying to control her. Ivy hated that her body noticed. "Don't carry me," she hissed, pride flaring even as her knees went soft. Sebastian's voice dropped near her ear. "Then walk," he said. "Because if you die in my building, I become the story." They moved. Fast. The security chief led, keys already out, 2 loyal guards forming a tight diamond around Sebastian and Ivy. The shooter lay on the floor, coughing, eyes wild, and still he managed to spit. "They'll bury you, Creed." Sebastian didn't look back. "They'll try," he said. The service door was a slab of steel hidden behind velvet paneling. The key turned with a physical clunk that felt obscene in a world of touchscreens. They slipped into a narrow corridor that smelled like bleach and hot metal. A low hum of refrigeration. The distant clatter of a kitchen working like nothing happened upstairs. "This way," Ivy said, surprising herself and Sebastian. She knew the back corridors from years of invisibility, from slipping through places rich people never saw. "Left," she added, "not right. Right hits the camera line." The security chief looked at her, a flicker of disbelief. "How do you—" "Because I've been ignored in this building 100 times, Ivy snapped. "Move." They cut left. The air got hotter. Steam rolled under a door. When they pushed into the kitchen, noise slammed into them. Orders shouted, pans screaming, knives tapping, a dishwasher roaring. Chefs in white coats turned, faces blank for half a second, then confused, then afraid when they saw suits and bloodless urgency. A line cook froze with a tray in his hands. "Keep working," Sebastian barked. The command bounced off them like rain off stone. Nobody moved until Ivy spoke, sharp, familiar, the language of staff. "Eyes down," she said. "Keep moving. You didn't see anything." The line resumed like a machine restarting. Sebastian's gaze cut to her again. Another crack in the Waitress mask. Another question he didn't ask yet. They hit the back stairwell. Concrete steps, yellow safety paint, a flickering fluorescent tube that buzzed like a trapped insect. Down 1 level, 2. Ivy's stomach tightened with every step. Sebastian kept a hand at her elbow, steadying her despite himself. Somewhere above them, faint, a new sound began. An alarm tone, not fire, not evacuation. Security. A lockdown sweeping the building. "They're sealing the exits," the chief muttered, listening to his earpiece. "They're overriding me." "Of course they are," Ivy said, breath tight, "because they don't need your permission anymore." They burst into the alley behind St. Noir. Cold air hit Ivy like a slap. Rain slick, smelling of trash and gasoline and wet brick. Neon bled down the walls. Somewhere nearby, a siren wailed. Sebastian pulled his phone again, out of habit, thumb moving. He tried to book a car. The app loaded, spun, then flashed. Payment method declined. He tried again. Same. His jaw clenched. "Give me your phone," he said to the security chief. The chief handed it over. Sebastian opened the same app and tapped, then froze when it demanded, "Identity verification required. Face scan. Government ID." He lifted the phone, tried to scan. The screen rejected him like a stranger. He looked up at Ivy, rain catching in his lashes, and for the first time he looked exposed. "Welcome to my life," Ivy said, and hated the satisfaction in her own voice. A black SUV rolled slowly past the mouth of the alley, lights off, moving like it knew exactly where to look. The security chief cursed under his breath. "They have eyes on us." Ivy's hand went into her apron pocket. She still had it on, absurdly, and came out with a crumpled stack of bills, damp at the edges. Cash. Ugly. Real. She shoved it into Sebastian's hand. "Taxi," she said. "Now." Sebastian stared at the bills like they were contaminated. Then the SUV paused. 1 second too long. Sebastian's fingers closed around the cash. He didn't argue. They ran. Rain stung Ivy's face. Her shoes slipped once on a painted curb. Sebastian caught her without thinking, pulling her upright with a grip that was all strength and impatience. A yellow cab idled at a corner, driver smoking under the awning of a closed deli. The security chief yanked the door open. "Uptown," Sebastian started to say automatically, then stopped, because uptown was just another word for tracked. Ivy leaned into the open window, voice low and fast. "Queens," she said. "No bridges, no tunnels, side streets." The driver's eyes flicked over suits, rain, fear. "Cash," Ivy added, and slapped the bills against the glass. The driver nodded once, like he'd made a decision to survive. They piled in. The cab lurched forward. Behind them, the SUV's headlights snapped on, bright and hungry, and the chase began without anyone saying the word. Sebastian's phone buzzed in his hand, one clean vibration that cut through the rain noise like a blade. He looked down. A new notification from his own network, stamped with corporate authority. "Emergency board action. Control transfer initiated." Under it, a second line appeared, colder. Subject Creed listed as hostile risk. Then a third, sent from an unknown number to Ivy's burner she hadn't even realized was still in her pocket. "Pier 9. 30 minutes. Bring him, or you both disappear." The cab's back seat smelled like wet vinyl and stale coffee. Ivy kept her forehead turned toward the cracked window because the cold glass helped with the heat crawling through her blood. Behind them, the SUV stayed in the mirror like a patient predator. No siren, no rush, just certainty. The driver's hands were tight on the wheel. "I don't want trouble," he muttered. Ivy leaned forward, voice low and sharp. "Then don't drive like you're afraid," she said. "Fear makes you predictable." Sebastian sat beside her, shoulders squared, jaw locked, phone in his hand like it was a weapon that had misfired. He tried to unlock it again, It demanded a face scan. It rejected him again. His world had become a pop-up error. "Pier 9, he said, reading the message for the third time, as if repetition would turn it into leverage. 30 minutes. Bring him." He looked at Ivy. "That's you." "That's them," Ivy corrected. "Whoever can order your compliance department to run Protocol Red." The security chief, wedged in the front seat, glanced back. "Compliance doesn't issue kill orders." "Not out loud," Ivy said. Rain hammered the windshield. Neon smeared into long, bruised lines. The SUV's headlights flared brighter behind them, closer now. Sebastian leaned in toward the driver. He tried his usual tone, the one that bought obedience. "Get us off the main roads. I'll compensate you." The driver barked a humorless laugh. "Your card just got declined, rich man." Sebastian's eyes flashed. Ivy watched him swallow the insult like glass. That was new. "Cash," Ivy said, and shoved another wad through the gap between seats. "Under the tracks, 2 lefts, then a right at the tire shop." The driver hesitated, then obeyed the money that still worked. They cut under an elevated line where steel and shadow chewed the streetlight. The cab bounced hard over potholes. The SUV tried to follow, but a delivery truck lurched out at the wrong second, and for one heartbeat, the Predator lost its line of sight. Ivy used that heartbeat. "Now!" she snapped. The driver jerked into a narrow side street, tires hissing on wet asphalt. Ivy's head swam. She pressed her tongue to the roof of her mouth and forced the nausea down like a secret. Sebastian watched her, eyes narrowing. "You're trained," he said. "Not a waitress." Ivy didn't answer. She stared at the city rushing past, and her voice came out thin but steady. "You want to ask questions? Ask the one that matters. Who benefits if you die tonight?" Sebastian's mouth tightened. "A lot of people," he said, then quieter, like it cost him. "My board." The cab slid behind a row of closed storefronts and cut into a strip mall parking lot. Ivy threw the door open before the car fully stopped. "Out!" she ordered. The security chief followed without arguing. Sebastian hesitated. Half a second of disbelief that anyone could tell him where to go. Then he got out too. Rain soaked his jacket instantly. He didn't look like a king out here. He looked like a man in a suit who'd lost his crown. They moved through a laundromat with buzzing fluorescent lights and tired machines spinning other people's problems clean. Ivy walked like she belonged, like she'd been invisible in places like this her whole life. She pushed through a door marked "Employees Only" and into a back room that smelled like detergent and old paper. A woman looked up from behind a counter full of prepaid phones and money orders. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, gold hoop earrings. The kind of person who could tell a lie by the way it breathed. "Ivy," the woman said, flat. Her gaze flicked to Sebastian's suit. "You brought trouble." "Mara," Ivy said. She swayed, caught herself on the counter. Mara's eyes dropped to Ivy's pale face. "You're dosed." "I'm fine," Ivy lied. Mara slid a bottle of water across, then a small blister pack. "Charcoal. 2 now." Ivy popped them dry, grimaced, forced a swallow. Sebastian watched like he was watching a negotiation happen in a language he didn't own. "Who is she?" he demanded. Mara didn't even look at him. "Who are you?" she shot back. The security chief shifted, hand drifting toward his waistband. Mara's hand disappeared beneath the counter and came back up holding something small and black that made everyone freeze. Not a gun. A scanner. A cheap identity reader. "Phones on the counter," Mara said. "All of you." Sebastian's nostrils flared. "You don't get to—" "You're in Queens," Ivy cut in. "You do what she says." Sebastian stared at her. Another "waitress can't do that" moment. Then, slowly, he set his phone down. Mara ran the scanner over it. The device beeped in a pattern that sounded like laughter. "They tagged you," Mara said to Sebastian. "Your own network, your own token. That's poetic." Sebastian's eyes went colder. "Can you remove it?" Mara shrugged. "Remove? No. Mask? Maybe, if you stop standing there like money is a personality." Ivy's knees wobbled again. She grabbed the counter. Sebastian's hand shot out toward her elbow, catching her. She stiffened, but she didn't pull away this time. His grip was warm through the wet fabric. "You're getting worse," he said. "We don't have time for you to collapse." Ivy's laugh came out brittle. "You're worried about me collapsing?" Sebastian's jaw tightened. "I'm worried about losing the only person in this room who can keep me alive," he said, then added softer, like it surprised him. "And maybe I'm tired of watching people die because of my name." The words hung there, dangerous. Ivy felt them anyway, felt how close his voice was, how his hand stayed on her just a second too long. She hated that it steadied her. Mara slapped a small burner phone onto the counter. "Pier 9 is a trap," she said. "You go, you're walking into their camera, their muscle, their paperwork. But you already knew that, didn't you?" Ivy stared at the burner. "They didn't text me to negotiate," she said. "They texted me to control where the story ends." Sebastian leaned in. "Then we don't go," he said. "We hit them first." Ivy's eyes lifted. "We can't hit a ghost," she replied. "Not until we pull them into light." The burner buzzed as if agreeing. A new message popped up, no number attached. "Cred Tower. Foundation Gala. 10 p.m. He walks in with you or you both get erased." Sebastian's mouth went tight. "Foundation Gala," he said. "My building. My cameras." Mara snorted. "Not yours anymore, King." Ivy's mind clicked fast, ignoring the poison burn for the moment. "They're staging a coup," she said. "They'll declare him unfit. They'll lock his assets. They'll make him the villain and me the weapon." She looked at Sebastian. "They need you to stay hidden, so they can write your ending." Sebastian stared back. "And what do you need?" Ivy's voice dropped. "I need you visible," she said. "I need you on that red carpet, on their live stream, with your board smiling behind you. Because the only place the elite tells the truth is when they think they're untouchable." Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "You're going in as what?" he asked, sharp, almost jealous without meaning to be. "My date?" Ivy didn't blink. "Your problem," she said. "Your shield. Your threat." Mara tossed a folded garment bag onto the counter like she'd been waiting for the line. "There's a dress in there," she said to Ivy. "Don't ask." Ivy grabbed it. Her fingers shook now. She hated that Sebastian noticed. He stepped closer, voice low. "If you betray me," he said, "I have nothing left to lose." Ivy's lips barely moved. "Good," she whispered. "Then you'll finally be honest." They moved fast. Mara slapped a strip of tape on Sebastian's phone, covering the camera. "No face scans," she said. "And keep your head down. That's going to be hard for you." The security chief got them a car that wasn't theirs, paid in cash like it was contraband. Ivy changed in the back seat, yanking fabric over her skin with shaking hands, fighting the nausea, pinning her hair with a bobby pin stolen from Mara's counter. No mirror, just instinct. When they pulled up to Cred Tower, the rain had stopped, but the street still gleamed. Spotlights swept the sidewalk. Cameras popped like small explosions. Men in tuxedos and women in diamonds floated past velvet ropes like the world was a private club. Sebastian stepped out first, forcing his posture back into place, wearing confidence like a suit that almost fit. Then Ivy emerged beside him in the borrowed black dress, hair pinned, eyes hard, and for a second the flashbulbs found her like she'd always belonged under them. Sebastian's hand slid to the small of her back, possessive, strategic, intimate in a way that made Ivy's pulse jump. "Smile," he murmured, close. "They're hunting for weakness." Ivy smiled with her mouth and kept her eyes cold. They reached the security gate. The guard scanned Sebastian's invitation. Green. Then he scanned Ivy. The device beeped red. Not on list. The guard's gaze lifted, suspicion sharpening. "Sir," he said carefully, "your companion isn't cleared." Sebastian's voice turned to ice. "Clear her." The guard hesitated, then looked at his tablet. "I can't," he said. "Your authority is suspended pending board review." The words hit like a slap. Ivy leaned in, lips near Sebastian's ear. "Let me," she whispered. She stepped forward, lifted her chin at the scanner, and said a string of numbers under her breath, soft, harmless, like a phone number. The scanner chirped. Green. Access granted. The guard blinked, confused, then stepped aside as if his body had obeyed before his mind caught up. Sebastian's eyes snapped to Ivy, sharp with a realization that tasted like fear. "What did you just do?" he asked. Ivy's smile didn't change. "I walked in," she said. As they crossed the threshold into marble and gold and perfume, a familiar voice behind them sliced through the glamour like a knife. "Hey," it said. "That's the waitress." "Hey," the voice said again, louder now, cutting through the flashbulbs. "That's the waitress." Ivy felt the word hit the back of her neck like a hand. Waitress. Like it was a stain. Like it was a sentence. Sebastian's palm stayed at her lower back, steady, almost possessive, and for a second she hated how that single touch kept her upright against the poison's heat. They turned together. A man in a tux, late 30s, sharp haircut, bored cruelty in his eyes, stepped out from the line of donors. On his arm hung a woman in diamonds who looked at Ivy like she'd found a hair in her champagne. The man's gaze flicked to Sebastian, then back to Ivy with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "She served at St. Noir," he said. "I saw her downstairs when the senator got sick." A security guard at the gate stiffened. The tablet in his hand became heavier. "Sir," the guard said to Sebastian, careful, "we have an incident flag." Sebastian's voice cut like ice. "She's with me." The man in the tux laughed softly. "With you?" he echoed. "Sebastian, your board is inside voting to strip you, and you show up with a kitchen girl?" Ivy saw the play forming in real time. Isolate her, shame her, force Sebastian to choose distance. If he dropped her, she'd be alone in a building that no longer recognized his authority. If he kept her, they'd paint him unstable. Either way, they won. Ivy lifted her chin. "Kitchen girl?" she said, and she let the words land clean. "You should try washing dishes with cameras on you. It teaches you what people hide." The woman in diamonds narrowed her eyes. "Security," she snapped, as if summoning dogs. Two guards approached, hands hovering near cuffs. Sebastian didn't move, but his posture shifted, something old and dangerous waking up under the tailored suit. "Touch her," he said softly, "and you'll be unemployed before your hand comes back down." The tuxman's smile widened. "You can't fire anyone right now," he murmured. "Your signature's frozen." Sebastian's jaw tightened. He glanced past them through the lobby glass. Marble, gold, the Cred Foundation logo projected 30 feet tall. His name turned into branding. He was used to doors opening because of him. Tonight, the door was opening in spite of him. Ivy leaned closer, lips near his ear, voice low enough for only him. "If you push, they'll make it a scene," she whispered. "If you retreat, they'll still erase you. So choose the version where we get inside." Sebastian's eyes flicked to hers. A beat. Then he smiled, polished, billionaire perfect, and slipped into the role the cameras expected. "You're right," he said aloud, loud enough for the nearest phones to catch. "Let's not do this here." The tuxman's shoulders loosened, thinking he'd won. Then Sebastian turned slightly, angling his body so Ivy was framed beside him in the flash line, and he said, "We'll do it on stage." Ivy felt the tuxman's smile falter. That was the mistake. Sebastian Creed loved an audience when he wanted to hurt someone. They walked forward before security could decide who they were allowed to obey. The tablet guard hesitated again. Then, Ivy's earlier access trick still held. Green lights, a path. The lobby swallowed them in warm perfume and cold air conditioning. Inside, power was visible. Guards with discreet ear mics, donors glittering, a string quartet playing under a ceiling that looked like it had never heard a raised voice. Ivy's heels, borrowed, slightly too tight, clicked on marble like a countdown. Sebastian leaned in as they moved. "You hacked my entry," he murmured, not looking at her, smiling for cameras that weren't there anymore. "That number you said." "Temporary override," Ivy whispered back. "A maintenance back door. Your people left it because they assumed nobody, like me, would ever speak the language." Sebastian's mouth twitched. "And you do." "I do," Ivy said, and felt the poison burn flare as if her body resented her confidence. Ahead, at the base of the grand staircase, a woman waited in a silver gown that looked poured on. She was flanked by 2 men in expensive suits and one quiet person in a gray blazer holding a tablet like a judge. The silver gown woman's eyes went straight to Sebastian, then dropped to Ivy with a slow, surgical contempt. "Sebastian," she said, voice smooth, "you're late." "Evelyn," Sebastian replied. The single name carried history and hostility. Ivy caught the ghost indentation on his finger again and understood without being told. Ring. Past. Leverage. Evelyn's gaze sharpened. "And you brought staff." Ivy felt her cheeks heat, not from shame, from anger. Sebastian didn't glance away. "This is Ivy," he said. "She's my guest." Evelyn smiled. "Your guest?" she repeated, tasting the words. "Your authority is suspended pending the board's emergency action. Guests require clearance." The gray blazer person finally spoke, voice flat. "Ms. Reed is flagged," they said. "Possible criminal involvement in an attempted poisoning. We can detain her until NYPD arrives." Ivy's stomach dropped. Not fear, timing. Detain meant isolate. Isolate meant disappear. Sebastian's eyes turned lethal. "You don't have jurisdiction," he said. The gray blazer didn't blink. "We have contracts," they replied. "And you have a public image problem." Ivy leaned in before Sebastian could bite. "Detain me," she said to the gray blazer, calm. "And your donor list gets frozen mid-gala." The gray blazer's eyes flicked, a micro-tell. They knew what she meant. Evelyn's smile sharpened. "Threats from a waitress," she said, amusement thick. "Sebastian, are you feeling well?" There it was, unfit, unstable. Remove him. Ivy felt Sebastian's hand tighten at her back, the first sign of anger slipping past control. He leaned closer, voice too soft. "They're going to erase me," he said to Ivy, "and they're going to bury you." Ivy's voice stayed steady even as her vision pulsed at the edges. "Then stop trying to survive alone," she murmured. "Use me." Sebastian's eyes flashed at the word use, because it was his favorite verb and he hated it coming from her mouth. But he didn't pull away. He faced Evelyn again, smile returning like a blade sliding into a sheath. "You want to test me?" he said. "Fine, put me on the stage. Let the world watch." Evelyn's gaze narrowed. "We're already live," she said, and gestured subtly upward. Ivy followed her glance. A camera rig, a red light, streaming. The trap wasn't just here, it was everywhere. A host on a headset appeared like a puppet on cue. "Mr. Creed," the host said brightly, "we're honored." "Save it," Sebastian said, still smiling. "Introduce my guest." The host blinked. Evelyn's eyes went sharp. The gray blazer's thumb moved on the tablet, fast, hidden. Ivy felt it like a cold draft. Her burner in her clutch buzzed once. A text flashed. Identity lock initiated. Subject, Ivy Reed. Status, pending deletion. Her throat tightened. Not metaphor. Real. If they completed it, every system that mattered would reject her. Hospitals, banks, employers, even police reports. She would become a non-person in a city that ate non-people. Ivy's fingers closed around the burner so hard it hurt. Sebastian saw the change in her face. "What is it?" he murmured, smile still painted on. Ivy didn't look at him. "They're erasing me," she whispered. Sebastian's smile faltered for half a second. Evelyn caught it like blood in water. "Ladies and gentlemen," Evelyn said smoothly to the nearby donors, voice rising, "a brief update." She turned her head slightly, speaking to the gray blazer without moving her lips. "Complete it." The tablet screen reflected in the gray blazer's glasses, a progress bar sliding forward. Ivy's skin went cold despite the poison heat. She couldn't fight it from here. Not through Faraday walls. Not with her hands shaking. Sebastian stared at the tablet, then at Ivy, and something in his eyes hardened into a decision that didn't belong to the billionaire persona. He stepped closer to the gray blazer, still smiling for the cameras, and said in a voice only they could hear, "If you finish that deletion, I'll burn this foundation to ash on livestream." The gray blazer paused. Evelyn's smile tightened. "You won't," she murmured to Sebastian, sweet as venom. "You built it." Sebastian's gaze flicked to Ivy, her pale face, her stubborn posture, the red marks on her wrists, and then back to Evelyn with something that looked almost like relief, because the choice was suddenly simple. "Watch me," he said. He reached past the gray blazer's tablet, grabbed the host's microphone with one clean motion, and pulled Ivy with him toward the stage, as if dragging her into the light was the only way to keep her alive. Evelyn followed, eyes burning. The progress bar on the tablet kept moving. Ivy's burner buzzed again, 87%. Sebastian lifted the microphone to his mouth. The room quieted. Cameras locked. 1,000 rich faces turned toward the man they thought they owned. And then Ivy saw, through the crowd, a familiar SUV idling inside the secured underground ramp on a wall monitor. Already in the building, already beneath them. The ballroom went quiet the way money goes quiet when it senses danger. 1,000 faces, 1,000 phones. Sebastian Creed stood under his own logo with a microphone in his hand like it weighed nothing, and Ivy beside him with her burner buzzing hot in her clutch, the deletion bar climbing toward the edge of her existence. On the wall monitor by the bar, the black SUV idled in the underground ramp, perfectly framed by a security camera that wasn't supposed to be public. Evelyn's smile didn't move, but her eyes did, counting exits, counting muscle, counting how long until this turned from a gala into a cleanup. Sebastian lifted the mic. "They told you I'm unstable," he said, voice smooth, billionaire calm. "That I've been compromised." He let the camera drink him in. "They're right. I'm compromised by the fact that I trusted the people I put in charge of my compliance." A ripple went through the room. The gray blazer's tablet flashed again. Ivy's burner buzzed, 94%. Her throat tightened. Not panic, rage. She leaned toward Sebastian, lips barely moving. "If it hits 100, I'm gone," she whispered. "Not dead, worse, unreportable." Sebastian didn't look at her. He kept smiling for the donors while his voice dropped just for her. "Then we don't let it," he murmured. He shifted his stance, angling his body so the cameras would see a protective gesture, a charming billionaire shielding his date from the crowd. What he actually did was pass her a small object from his pocket. Cold. Heavy. A brass key on a thin chain. Analog. "Foundation vault," he said under his breath. "Basement. Air-gapped console. The only thing they can't revoke because it was built before CreedPay existed." Ivy's eyes flicked to the key, then to the wall monitor, then to the security exits. She understood. "You're going to walk me through," she whispered. Sebastian raised the mic again, louder now. "Evelyn Voss," he said, and the name hit the room like a glass shattering. Evelyn's head tilted, smile still in place. "Careful," she murmured without a mic. Sebastian ignored her. "You wanted a board action?" he continued. "Congratulations. Tonight, I'm calling mine." His gaze slid to the cameras. "I'm invoking the Foundation's transparency clause. Full ledger release, donor flows, compliance logs, all of it, right now." The gray blazer stiffened. "You can't," they hissed. Sebastian smiled wider. "Watch me." Ivy saw the shift in Evelyn's face. 1 microsecond of real panic. The ballroom doors opened behind the crowd, too smooth, too coordinated. Men in black moved in without looking like they were moving in. The same shape as Saint Noir, different uniforms, same purpose. The security chief appeared at the edge of the stage, eyes wide, hand tight on his earpiece. He mouthed one word. "Now." Ivy didn't hesitate. She slid off the stage with the key hidden in her fist, head down, blending into the staff corridor like she'd been born there. Invisible again. Sebastian kept the cameras on him, voice still pouring out like a distraction. "You built a system that can erase a person," he said, gaze sweeping the room. "You used it like a party trick. Tonight, it tried to erase the wrong one." Ivy felt her pulse in her ears as she hit the service stairwell. Concrete, yellow paint, buzzing fluorescent. The poison still burned under her ribs, but the charcoal dulled the edge. She ran anyway, heels off, barefoot on cold steps. Every landing smelled like bleach and hot wiring. Behind her, footsteps, fast. Not her security chief. He was ahead, blocking. These were the others, the ones the board sent. Ivy clutched the brass key until her knuckles went white. Her burner buzzed, 97%. "Basement door," the security chief barked from below. "Hurry!" Ivy rounded the last turn and slammed into a steel door with an old-fashioned keyhole. She jammed the brass in, turned. The lock gave with a deep, satisfying clunk. The door opened into a room that felt like an underwater grave. Cold air, concrete walls, a row of humming metal cabinets, and a single terminal with no network cable, no Wi-Fi indicator, no touchscreen. Just a slot and a blinking green light. Air-gapped. Pure. Ivy sprinted to it, hands shaking, shoved her burner into the slot with a cable Mara had taped to its back. The screen flickered to life with plain text. Authorization required. Ivy's burner buzzed, 99%. Her stomach dropped. "It needs him," she breathed. The security chief slammed the door and shoved a rolling rack against it. It dented. The handle rattled immediately, hard. "They're here," he grunted, drawing his weapon. 2, maybe 3. Ivy's fingers flew over the terminal. Authorization required. Founder key. Biometric. She looked at the empty space beside her and felt a cold, stupid fear. What if Sebastian didn't follow? What if he chose his empire over a girl they could delete with a progress bar? The door behind the security chief boomed again. Metal screamed. Ivy's burner buzzed. Silence. Then one line. 100%. Status. Deleted. For half a second, the world tilted. Ivy stared at the screen, waiting to feel herself vanish, waiting for the air to reject her. Nothing happened. She was still breathing, still solid, still here. The door exploded inward, then stopped. Because Sebastian Creed was suddenly there, shoulder first, slamming into the opening with violence and fury, grabbing the edge of the door and driving it shut again with the strength of a man who'd finally found something he couldn't outsource. Rain still clung to his hair. His suit was torn at the cuff. His eyes were bright, alive, and terrifying. "Move!" he snapped at the security chief and shoved his own body against the door like a human lock. "Ivy," he said, and the way he said her name wasn't ownership. It was urgency. It was choice. "Do it." Ivy stared at him, breath stuck. "They deleted me," she whispered. Sebastian's mouth tightened. "Good," he said. "Then they can't track you anymore." That was the twist. That was the point. Ivy's eyes flared with sudden understanding and disgusted herself for not seeing it sooner. The deletion wasn't just a weapon. It was a door out. A dead identity meant no leash, no paperwork chain, no digital collar. Ivy's hands stopped shaking. She reached for the terminal. "Put your thumb here," she ordered. Sebastian didn't hesitate. He slammed his thumb onto the biometric plate. The terminal blinked. Access granted. The screen filled with file names, ledgers, video logs, compliance threads stamped Protocol Red. Ivy selected Send to Live Feed. Sebastian's eyes cut to her. "If you push that," he said, voice low, "it burns everything." "I know," Ivy replied. "That's why it works." The door bucked again. The men outside shouted. The security chief fired one warning shot into the ceiling, not to kill, to stall. Dust rained down. Sebastian kept his shoulder in place, jaw clenched hard enough to crack teeth. Ivy hit enter. The terminal beeped once. Then, the ballroom live stream, the one Evelyn thought she controlled, became something else entirely. Receipts pouring out like floodwater. Donor names, shell routes, payoff memos, the order that triggered Protocol Red, the internal chat where someone wrote, plain as daylight, if Creed won't play, remove him. Somewhere above them, a roar rose through the building as phones lit up and faces changed, and the elite realized their privacy had just been dragged into public. Evelyn's voice came through a speaker on the wall, furious, perfect. "Sebastian," she hissed, "stop." Sebastian laughed once, short and bitter. "You never loved me," he said. "You loved what my money could erase." Ivy's terminal flashed. Upload complete. Then, clean and final, system shutdown initiated. Creed Pay's hum, distant and constant in the city's bloodstream, began to die. In that same moment, the pressure on the door eased, not because they gave up, but because they had a new emergency now. Panic upstairs, cameras everywhere, their story collapsing. Sebastian stepped back from the door, chest heaving. He looked at Ivy like he was seeing her for the first time without the filter of hierarchy. "You baited me," he said softly. Ivy's eyes didn't drop. "I needed you in a room you couldn't buy your way out of," she answered. "I needed you to choose something other than yourself." Sebastian nodded once, like the truth hurt but also relieved him. "And you?" he asked. "What do you choose?" Ivy swallowed, feeling the poison's last heat fade into exhaustion. She reached up and, for a second, touched the red marks on her wrists like they were a reminder of where power ends. "I choose to stay invisible," she said. Sebastian's hand lifted as if he might touch her face, then stopped, because he finally understood consent wasn't something he could purchase. "They'll come," he said. "Cops, press, everyone." Ivy stepped back, already fading into motion. "Let them," she replied. "For once, you can't pay them off. You'll have to tell the truth." She paused at the service stairwell, looked over her shoulder. For a fraction of a second, the tension between them softened into something dangerous and quiet. "Sebastian," she said. He held her gaze. "If you ever look for me," she added, "don't use an app." Then she was gone, barefoot on concrete, disappearing into the city that never noticed the people who kept it running. Upstairs, the gala turned into sirens and shouting and flashing lights. Down here, in the cold basement, Sebastian Creed stood with nothing left to swipe, nothing left to hide behind, and the first real thing he'd ever done that didn't have a price tag. If this story hits you, tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. If you had Ivy's chance to erase yourself from the system, would you take it? Or would you fight to keep your name?